Welcome to the Citizen Advisory Commission Board meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order. The time is now 6 p.m. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Commissioner Burke, Commissioner Moody, Commissioner Sanchez,
Present.
Vice Chair Auclair,
Present.
and Chair Bruning.
Here. Do we have any public comments at this time?
No general public comments.
Okay. We have no presentations. We will now consider items on the consent calendar, which will be enacted in one motion unless a commissioner has a request to remove an item for discussion. May I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? This motion is passed. Okay, our first business item is Heroes, History and Heritage Policy Nomination, Richard Bard Monument. Recommendation is to review the application submitted by the Oxnard Harbor District to construct and install a Richard Bard Monument on city property and make a recommendation to City Council. Will staff please present the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As indicated, item number 2 on the agenda pertains to an application under the Heroes, History, and Heritage Policy submitted by the Oxnard Harbor District. The application seeks to honor Richard Bard with a public monument on city property. As noted in the staff report, each year the city and the Oxnard Harbor District meet to review project ideas to be funded with the Community Benefit Fund monies. For the last few years, a multi-phased public monument project with Phase 1 consisting of a Richard Bard statue has been discussed by both agencies. The city's initial approval action for Phase 1 approved $50,000 and indicated that final project details would be determined through the Heroes, History, Heritage Policy application process. There have been 2 additional allocations from the Community Benefit Fund, $30,000, which Council approved November of 2022, and an additional $40,000, which was approved by Council last Monday. The subject application has been screened by staff and is here now presented to the CAC for your review. As a quick summary, and I should note as I go into this, the applicant is here and has a presentation, is prepared to give that after I complete my brief presentation. But by way of quick summary, the Oxnard Harbor District is proposing to install a bronze statue of Richard Bard in the center of the Wharf Plaza. The statue weighs approximately 1,000 pounds. It stands 7 feet tall and would sit atop a 4-foot pedestal. The district reports that the cost of construction and installation is estimated at $97,374. District will be responsible for all ongoing maintenance of the monument. And it's important to note that lastly, the proposal is that a installation of commemorative plaques on the monument noting Richard Bard's various accomplishments would be installed at a later date. So here are some photos, different views, north, south, east, west, of the proposed location for your review. Again, the center of the Wharf Plaza, which is adjacent to the intersection of Surfside and Market. And then in conclusion, CAC is charged with reviewing the application, considering the relevant data, and making an advisory recommendation to the council. The relevant data includes a review of the nominee's record, its accomplishments, alignment with the naming standards and the policy, appropriateness of the proposed location, and an accounting of the project costs. I should also note that in the application, it's noted that the district would be responsible, or wishes to, and would be responsible for the cost associated with a ribbon cutting ceremony. So that concludes the brief staff presentation. And again, Miguel Rodriguez from the port is here. And if it's the commission's pleasure, I can have him provide the presentation.
Okay.
Welcome. think a lot of it was covered in the staff report. Again, commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to be here and present this project that was proposed by both the city council and members of the committee actually, members of the committee on CBF for both the Hueneme City Council as well as the Oxnard Harbor Commission. So my name is Miguel Rodriguez. I'm the community outreach manager for the port, and I'm here to present to you a little bit more of the vision and the specifics of this particular project. We're going to move to the next slide, please. Oh, okay, it's right here. All right, awesome. Oh, there it is. Okay. Again, just to reiterate, the location is at the Hueneme Wharf Plaza. A lot of the determination for that particular location as a setting is due to its proximity to the port entrance as well as the original Bard's Wharf location, which actually stemmed from that particular place. And so this is not only to commemorate Mr. Richard Bard, right, but also that particular contribution, right, to this community, which has yielded some of the probably the most significant economic engine that has been in existence in Ventura County. As Mr. Peretz, yeah, right, Mr. Peretz said or mentioned, actually, the statue would be 11 feet high, which would be 7 feet tall, as well as a 4-foot pedestal. And here's a little bit more of like the actual sculpture would be Mr. Richard Bard holding the shovel. And so just in terms of reference of like a regular person is about 5'8", 5'7", and so the statue would be above the regular person's stature, right? Just to give it more significance and also for impact as well. In terms of the timeline, we submitted white papers to the CBF committee in February of 2022. Throughout February to June of 2022, I did a very extensive background check along with some of the interns at the port. We looked through a lot of the archives, both at the Ventura County Museum as well as the university here at Channel Islands. We started the preparation of the application in June of 2022. And then from there, we did an artist search. We commissioned an artist who had been tasked with this, as well as, throughout the timeline, you can see that it was originally intended to be brought and installed by the 150th year celebration of Ventura County. Unfortunately, we missed that particular deadline because of this requirement for this particular review. But however, that also gives us an opportunity to, continue through this process formally and also to ensure that there is continuity as well as that we go through the appropriate channels to execute this. And just finally, this is more or less what the statue is looking like. They haven't stood it up yet because it weighs so much, so they're refining a lot of the details. But it's a youthful Richard Bard with a dream. There is a book called The Troubled Dream that pretty much depicts a lot of the history behind Richard Bard's vision. The concrete pedestal, as you could see in the details, it would need a 2-foot anchor as well as a 4-foot in height. So it would probably be about the size of the podium as well. And sculpture would be anchored to the podium because it's about 1,000 pounds in weight. So that pretty much puts into perspective the project. I'd be happy to entertain any questions regarding the application as well. And you have in your packets the application that was submitted.
Does the commission have any questions for staff? Only questions will be taken at this time. Comments and discussion will be heard later.
One question. Did you have other locations that you considered for this statue as well?
This particular project was considered by both the City Council Committee and the Port Committee. And during this particular process, a location which was identified there was the one that was pretty much agreed upon by both bodies.
Yeah, but my question is, did you also have other locations you were considering?
There were other locations that were considered for other monuments. For example, this is part one of a three-part process where there will be a monument for the Seabees as well as one more monument for the Chumash. Whether those are installed, at the same time or at different times depends on the allocation of the funding from both committees as well. But that is the vision. The other locations that were identified were submitted to the joint committee through a white paper back in 2022. But this is the location that was identified for Mr. Bard's monument.
So that's interesting. I didn't know about the other statues or the monuments that you were considering. It's just, the only reason I'm asking is that is one of the questions that came up a lot about, well, what about other locations? And so we'll talk more about that. I'm just curious if you had other locations that you would consider. Thank
Did you have a question?
I'll speak to it a little bit more during deliberation.
Okay.
Thanks.
Are
Pam.
there any public comments on this?
I have 2 written public comments. Oh, go ahead and start the first one. Hello, we thank you for your efforts to keep Port Hueneme beautiful. We would like to request that you do not put up a statue in the flagpole location. It is one of the most naturally beautiful locations in Port Hueneme, and many come to watch the sunset in the evenings. We feel that a statue will only distract from that beauty. Maybe a more appropriate location would be near the Port Hueneme Museum. Thank you so much for your consideration, the Babbitt family. And the next one is, in regards to the Bard statue, no, should be in a park with greenery. Note, this may be a duplicate vote. Sorry. That was from Patricia Whittree. That concludes the written public comments. And we're going to call up some in-person public comments right now. Ms. Rooney, would you like to go first? Oh, Mr. Rara.
Good evening. I'm happy to be here, and I'm hoping for good results as far as Richard Bard's statue is concerned. As someone who has worked on the waterfront my whole life, 52 years on the waterfront and 34 years as a harbor commissioner, it has always been my dream to honor the man who built this port. And the values that he had, I think, are very important for us to keep in mind. Thomas Bard, who built the wharf, he built that wharf, I think, initially at 700 feet, then he had to double it to 1,400 feet, then he had to double it to, or triple it to 2,100 feet, because it was so necessary at that time to have trade here on the water. And one thing led to another. And Thomas, in a letter that is public and see, he basically says to Richard, listen, we're blessed to be wealthy, and we should do something with our philanthropy. We should do something that would raise up the living conditions of every man, regardless of his current condition. That was basically the cause of the letter. And he wanted to build something, a civic entity that would, for generation after generation, provide opportunity and prosperity for our community. Those were the values that those two men had. That's the reason that port is there. Also, as you know, when he started to build it and was almost complete, World War II broke out. So the United States Navy and Admiral Ben Morrell did not have enough longshoremen, or didn't have really any longshoremen, to supply the Seabees in the Pacific. So he went to Harry Bridges, who was a big coast leader, Pacific West Coast leader, and said, we need longshoremen to supply our Seabees in the Pacific. So Harry Bridges said, yes, let's win the war. And that's why that longshore local has been there all of these years to supply the Navy. And we have the longshoremen, rather, have been active in every war since World War II, every police action since World War II. Everything that has made the commercial port stronger has also made our United States Navy stronger. All the equipment that we have, all the manpower that we have, goes to the United States Navy in time of national emergency. And that's the type of synergy and cooperation that we have between the two entities that are there. And you have to think, well, let me go back a little bit. During World War II, it came out in a national magazine that said that the United States Navy had gotten the most efficient harbor in the world to fight during World War II. And that's been the type of port it's been ever since then. It has broken every record of tonnage and everything else for supplying our military in, am I done?
Hmm?
Why don't you let me complete, you know?
Okay.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that, here we have an individual who is considered one of Ventura County's leading citizen because of what he did for this community. Now, the city of Hueneme and the port have an agreement that when the port makes money, the city makes money. For years, we've been providing the city with thousands and thousands of dollars, actually millions now, of dollars that come from the port. And the port would not be there without Richard Bard. So at one time or another in your lifetime, you got to recognize the person who was responsible for this. Not $1 of public money was used to build that port. Not $1 of public money is used to run that port. It is self-sufficient. It is the biggest economic engine in Ventura County. And it happens to be right in your backyard. And you're getting all of the benefits that it provides. All of the benefits that it provides. And all that we're asking is recognize the guy that did it. Give recognition, the due recognition, to the individual that did this, that has provided millions of dollars, thousands of jobs. There was thousands and thousands of people working during Vietnam here, also during World War II, and every other police action and war that's transpired. You can't take that away from him. You can't ignore what he did. He has provided opportunity and prosperity for thousands of people in this county. And if you will look at the GDP, the gross domestic product of Ventura County, the only reason that it has gone up and not down is because of what the Port of Hueneme is providing to this county. Every city in this county receives millions of dollars due to the port. The $2.2 billion and more that the port does provides millions of tax dollars to every city, to Oxnard, to you guys, everybody. I mean, how do you say, well, I'm going to ignore that guy. He didn't exist. You got to at some time recognize that individual for what he did. He created a tremendous thing for us, a tremendous thing for me, tremendous thing for you, same thing. If you go and look at your records at the amount of money that the port has provided over the years, and this guy, not only that, he was a hero. He was a 3-time veteran, served in 3 wars. Unbelievable, decorated. You just can't ignore something like that. And I beg you not to ignore it. I beg you. I would get on my knees because that man deserves our recognition. He did so much for this community and this county. He deserves it. We just cannot deny it to him. I could go on and on about all the things that he's responsible for. We have a huge agreement with you guys that goes on for years and years, providing money. You also, it's just, I'm so passionate about this, I just kind of get lost in the weeds, but it's just something its time has come. Its time has come that we recognize him. And, we've talked to your city council and they've agreed, and we're basically on the same page about this whole thing, about maintaining it, keeping it clean. And the location of it is, I think, appropriate. Don't forget that we did the breakwater. We fixed that up. We did the promenade, put it there. There's even a plaque there at that point entering the promenade, talking about how the Port of Hueneme did that for the community. How many people take that walk, every day? Probably, dozens, and enjoy it. And that's why they'll walk by there and also see the statue of Richard Bard. You know, the Port of Hueneme has always been a bright spot on the horizon for this county, and it will continue to be. But it will never, ever get the recognition it needs unless we get the support of people like yourselves. At the commencement, when Richard Bart stuck the shovel in the ground, he said, I have the people of this community to thank for this because they believed in him and they supported him at that time. The city of Ventura was crying for this port. They were raising money to get a bond issue going so they could have the port in Ventura. Now, where would you be if they would have put that in Ventura? You would not be getting a damn penny like you are now, you know? And what happened? The city of Oxnard stood up and their chambers of commerce and said, no, 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 we're going to raise money too. We're not going to allow this to go to Ventura. So they fought to keep it here. And lucky for us, I would never have been a commissioner. You know, we would never have this great opportunity here to recognize this individual. You know, sometimes you got to dig deep and look in your own heart. You know, if you had a relative that had done all that, you'd certainly want him recognized, you know. So I'm going to ask you to please, you know, think outside the box, understand how important this is going to be. And actually, I have another vision. You know, the Port of Hueneme has always been a port of dreams. I said it was a dream to Richard Bart. It's been a dream to us to continue to keep it in good shape and provide economic vitality for our community. But the other dream is that more things can be done. More jobs can be created. We're not going to stop where we are right now, 25,000 jobs in building, millions of dollars for our community. We're not going to stop. Today I went to what they call a CEO roundtable. And you know what? All those CEOs want to do what we're doing, but they can't do it. They're not providing the type of venue that we have. They're not providing the type of money that we are providing for our communities. They're not providing the type of jobs that we're providing for our communities. We have family sustaining jobs. And why we call them that is because it's a good wage, a living wage. And not only that, guess what? It comes with good medical benefits. That's family sustaining. And in a city, in a county where we have over 30,000 people living in poverty, 1 in 4 children going hungry, our job is to break those numbers down and continue providing those family sustaining jobs. That's what we want to do. Those are the values that Richard and Thomas Bart had. Those were their values, opportunity and prosperity. And we live by those values. And I'm very proud that we have harbor commissioners that believe in that, and harbor commissioners that will stick their neck out to get those things done for our community. Before we do anything, first, we think about the impact to our community. Will it impact the environment? Will it impact the roads? Whatever it may be. But I appreciate you listening to me. I just can't tell you. It's just, it is the equitable thing to do. It is the equitable thing to do to honor this man in that location because it's going to help your city. My dream is for your city to improve its museum, and we'll help you improve your museum. My dream is for you to have availability to the CB Museum, so that, which you do now, but I want you to have that. I want you to have the museum updated. I want you to have that statue, and then I want you to have the Bard Mansion. I want you to have the Bard Mansion as a place that your community can go and enjoy themselves, have dinner, have lunch, and that's my dream, and I'm not going to give that dream up easily. And hopefully someday I'm going to be standing here telling you, guess what? I just went to Washington and we got it going. And we basically did. I was in Washington about 2 weeks ago, and I talked to the Department of the Navy, and I said, listen, we need to get some of that stuff back that we lost during the war for our community, including the Bard Mansion. And you know what he said to me? You know what, Jess, you're right. You're right. And so that's going to be my dream, to work for that, give it to you and your people and your community. And if you have any questions for me, I know I've been long-winded and you've been very kind to listen to me, but the port has been very long-winded too. It's been there a long time. It's been there for 80 years, almost 90, providing those jobs, providing those benefits. Do you know that?
Thank you, Mr. Herrera.
One last thing.
You're
put me in
approaching
jail.
7 minutes, I think.
Put me in jail. One last thing. You know, when the poverty here in Oxnard was very, very low, you know what the port did? They went to the EDD Employment Development Department and said, give us all the people that are on unemployment. We are going to put them to work. So every week we got a list from the unemployment department, the EDD. They came to the port and they went to work. They got off the public dole and they were earning real money. That's the kind of things that this port brings to this community. Please don't ever forget that. Thank you.
Mary Ann Rooney.
How much time do I have?
3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'll stay within 3 minutes. Thank you very much, honorable commissioners. My honor to be here tonight. I'm a commissioner at the Port of Hueneme. I just wanted to give you a little context of some of the language that was in the presentation. You may or may not know about that. The Community Benefit Fund was originally designed so that the Board of the Harbor Commissioners and the City Council members could work together on projects that benefited the city and benefited the port. And this was supposed to be a fun process that we could come up with ideas and wonderful things to work together on. And so what came out of that in fiscal year 2021 was the idea of putting monuments, putting permanent fixtures in your community that honored and celebrated all of the people who supported both the port and the city of Hueneme. And so that's where this monument idea came about originally, was 3 years ago. We started talking about it. The process goes through the Board of Harbor Commissioners, goes through the City Council. We get together, our 2 representatives come together to talk about everything, and then go back to our respective boards, flush it all out, talk about it again, get back together again, and come up with a collaborative decision. And so that's where this monument came about. And location-wise, there were multiple locations that were discussed through both boards and both committees. It came up with this was probably going to be the best location. And so all that started prior to the process that we're going through this evening. So we've been kind of working through all this, and then while we're the applicant, it really is both agencies are asking for approval of this. We just happen to be the ones that submitted the paperwork, but the city and the Harbor District have been working together as part of this process. So I think that that might be helpful, you know, as you deliberate. I agree with Commissioner Herrera that it is time for us to honor the people that help both of our agencies and both the city and the port. And we do have one of the representatives of the family, the Bard family, here with us tonight, who has been very passionate about recognizing his family legacy too. So he's with us here tonight. So I ask you to ask questions and approve that this moves forward to the City Council, and I hope that you give the recommendation for it to move forward. Thank you very much.
Joan Tharp.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. I appreciate the gentleman's passion about the statue, and I hope he supports the Chumash statue as passionately as this one. I don't disagree about having a monument to Mr. Bard. I do disagree with the location. I think that it should be located either at the museum, as was mentioned earlier, or perhaps at one of the port buildings. I don't think that the location of that location, considering how big the statue is really quite appropriate. I also don't know that the citizenry has had enough information to weigh in on this. I just learned about this, and that's my fault. But I do hope you consider very carefully the location, not the installation of the statue, because I think that's a good monument, but the location I don't think is appropriate. Thank you.
Stephen Gama.
Thank you for having me and letting me speak. My name's Stephen Gama. I'm here as a resident. I live very close to here. I work at the Port of Hueneme, and I love working at the Port of Hueneme, and I agree with many of what Commissioner Herrera has said, although I missed half of the statement because the notice said 6:30 that I saw on Facebook. Did it say 6:30? Thought I saw. Okay, anyways. So a couple weeks ago, or maybe not too long ago, part of my responsibility is to escort non-TWIC cardholders into the port. And I was up there a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, I'm not sure, and they were taking all these trees out, and I said, "No, oh, this is what must be where the statue's going to go. That's a perfect spot," and it really is a perfect spot. And come to find out that I hear it's an 11-foot statue, and it's going to go down at the beach. And I think that's kind of like your neighbor buying a statue and saying, "Can I put it in your front yard?" I mean, I think the statue is important, but I think it needs to be put on the port property. Um, there's a big-time surfer named Butch Towers, and if somebody proposed to put a statue of him down on the beach, I think there would be overwhelming support of it. The Bard family, there's a road made after them, Bard Avenue. There's a school named after them. There's a monument to the Bard family right near the Bard Mansion. And I think there's a few others mentioned, honoring the family. So I don't have a problem with the port spending their money on a 11-foot statue, but I think it belongs on their property. And I think the best spot for it is right there at the corner of Market and Hueneme Road. And with the trees being removed, I mean, they cleared the spot, and it's just a beautiful spot, and I think that's the perfect spot for it. And so I think honoring the family with the statue is fine. I think it should just go on the port property and not the beach. And I do worry about some of the residents that have their homes, and a statue of that size might obstruct their views. So I hope that the port could listen and put it at the entrance to the port. I think it'll serve all the hundreds and thousands of trucks and products and employees that come through to know that that's the man that made this place possible. It's right here at the entrance of the port. So that's my hope. I think the beach should just remain the beach. Thank you.
That concludes the public comments for this.
Okay, the recommendation is to receive and file this informational report. May I have a motion and a second?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
No, what is?
Yeah, just one point of correction. The staff recommendation is that you receive it and make a advisory recommendation to City Council regarding the dispensation
Right.
of the application.
And then there needs to be council member or commissioner deliberation.
Yeah, after we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah. So I'll keep mine brief because I'll probably circle back to some of this later on. But I just want to thank the port for their work on this, for their patience as we go through this long process. It's a lot of work to work together, two government entities, the community, as well as the whole region, right? The Oxnard Harbor District covers a whole region here. So I think this is a good project. I think this location is vital, right? It is the epicenter of the history of the modern engagement of our economic life in this region, while also recognizing that later on we're adding those other monuments to recognize, both the Navy and, of course, the Shumash history as well. So, there's other things that certainly I might feel different about if I was here at the beginning of the project. 90,000 is a lot, but it costs a lot to do almost anything these days. An 11-foot statue is a lot. I think that makes that the largest statue that I've ever seen in Ventura County. But that's where we're at now, right? We're further on. This has been through deliberation, through communication. So I'd be willing, and I will be supporting this. I think it's the right location. I think it's important that we see both murals and art and statues that tell our history, right? History is the stories we tell ourselves, and we often forget that. That's what it is, right? It's how we remind ourselves. And I think this is an interesting monument in that it's also telling the ongoing story, right? It's not just about the impact that one man or one family had. It's about the impact that continues to live through the port. One of the public commenters commented about how, it might as well be on port property. Well, I think this talks to our community history where it is now being proposed. It is all of our history. It's not just the story of the port or some kind of decorative, self-grandizing piece, right? It's our history, and so I encourage us to view it that way. And it sounds like once these three monuments are built, we're going to be hopefully able to connect those, perhaps even through like an art walk along the promenade, right? That what makes our story and our narrative visible to the public. And so I'll leave it there, but I will support this. I think it's worthy individual to recognize and a regional history, a city history, not just some kind of feel good piece for the port. It looks like it's truly been a partnership, and I look forward to seeing it there at that location, at the epicenter of our history.
So, thank you for the little history on how this all came about. I too believe that history is one of my favorite subjects, and I do appreciate the history of the Bard family and the accomplishments, and I think that's wonderful. I think that the reason I asked about the location is because in a very short period of time, when I found this was on our agenda, I reached out to about 100 and actually about 140 people that are residents throughout our community, through our coalition that we have. And I wanted to get their feedback, and they're from all different parts of the community. And they're homeowners, they're residents, many of them have lived here a long time. And out of the 140, we got about a 40% return of comments. Everyone thought the idea of the statue is fine, and they love the idea of the history of it. However, 47 of them said it's the wrong location. 8 agreed to the beach location. So we have a disparity as far as the concerns as to where the location should be. I think that there's an overwhelming portion of those people felt that the Chumash should be on the beach instead. And I didn't know you were going to do consider a Chumash location or a monument. And I think that's a wonderful idea. I think that as Joan had mentioned too, she had mentioned that as well, and I appreciate that comment because I think that there is something to be said about that. It's our city name is Wainimi, the resting place, and I think that there's some benefit in honoring the Chumash on the beach. So I think that I'd like to recommend. I support the statue. I just don't support the location of the statue. I'm sorry to say. I just think it's an inappropriate location.
I think I kind of want to say the same thing as I spoke to some of my neighbors regarding the location of the statue also. I 100% support the statue. There's absolutely nothing that I don't support about the statue, but the location, a couple of things were brought up for me, and that was, is it going to affect the value of my home when I no longer have the view of the ocean and an obstruction to it? So I agree with you on the recommendation that I don't know if there was any further talk as far as a different location, but I support the statue 100%, and that's pretty much what I have to say.
Do you have anything, Mr. Moody? Is there any other further discussion?
I thank my colleagues for sharing those concerns. I think it's important, one of the earlier notes that was made about the significance of the site. And perhaps it's always interesting when we talk about this and we reach out to the average resident who's just trying to make a go at it, trying to earn their keep and keep a house over their heads about it without explaining why that site is significant, right? And I think it's the very reason why a monument there is important to tell the story and why that location is significant to the history of our region. You know, if you ask somebody, hey, do you want an 11-foot statue at the beach? They're going to probably say, probably not, right? And it kind of fuels, frankly, like a sense of NIMBYism, right? Not in my backyard, it can go someplace else. Well, the city's only so big, and there's only certain locations that are there's no other location that's as significant as that location for this statue, that's accessible to the public, that will allow book ending, right? Imagine if we had a Shumash monument on one end of the beach walkway, right? It's like, what is it, a mile long, a couple miles long? And this monument on the other end, right? It shows the history. So that's why I'm a little concerned about this specific issue, taking feedback where we reach out to our public in that specific way without also acknowledging that has there been a lot of information around why this location is significant. If you just say, you knock on some doors, oh, do you want a 11-foot statue across the street from you? They're probably going to say no. Not to say that that's exactly what happened, but and I think the comment around property values, an art walk with art and history, that's going to raise the property values, not decrease them. That's a thing. That's why we invest in public art. And then as far as the view, I mean, we're talking about, close to a life-size statue of one person, right? It's not like a 9-story apartment building or something. So I understand those concerns. I do really urge that we accept this. Again, we're far, and this statue's already being cast or has already been cast. So we're, the cake's been cooked on that. So I just really urge you colleagues that I think that location is the right location for this. Some say the museum. Well, frankly, is the museum even open at the moment? I don't know.
No, it's not.
It's not. So few locations are as prominent and could bookend our history in that way. If we had CB, Shumash, the Bard Monument, and then maybe some art throughout, that is a really cool display of our story to our public and our visitors. I'll leave it there. Thank you. So I urge the adoption of staff recommendation. Or excuse me, of
The recommendation is to receive and file the informational report.
I'm
well,
sorry.
and we're making a recommendation to the city council to approve the application as presented. And that'll be
Is that on your motion?
that would be my motion.
Do I have a second?
So can I make some more comments then, just to try to kind of clarify? The people that commented on this were not people that weren't in the know. They're very much aware of what the port has been for our community, and they respect that, and they're not trying to be obstinate or difficult. I think they're just trying to be practical and finding the right solution. The beach is very pristine, and we've have a beautiful beach, and it's probably one of the nicest beaches in Ventura County. And I think that there's a concern about too much stuff going on the beach as far as monuments and I think that I appreciate the concept, but we don't have a concept for a art walk or anything of that nature at this time. And if that's something that the council has a vision for, then that's probably a discussion that needs to be had. But we shouldn't piecemeal it. And I think we should have a bigger vision for what the concept is. But I think that the port entryway is a beautiful place to put it. And I think that even across the street at the museum, and or the park, or the school, there's so many beautiful locations in our city. I just think that given that our responsibility is to get citizens, we're called the Citizens Advisory Commission. We're supposed to get citizens' input. And that's what I did. And that's what I feel a responsibility to share those comments from the citizens. And the citizens did not favor that location. They favor the statue, but they do not favor that location.
Okay, since I didn't get a second on Commissioner Auclair's motion, do I have a second motion?
I guess I would recommend that the city, the council and the commissioners come back with an alternate location. To listen to what the citizens have to say and to see if they can come back with another location that could be just as good or maybe better.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
I think there has to be a discussion on that motion. That's a new motion.
Okay,
Just to clarify, that's a motion for them to come back to us.
If the council would like to have that brought back to the Citizens Advisory Committee, that's certainly up to the council to do so. We're here at the pleasure of the council. We're here to make recommendations from the citizens, and the council makes their decisions based on our recommendations or not, right? So, I mean, they could hear what we have to say, and they could say, no, we don't like the suggestion that you're providing. I just think that we have a responsibility to try to be the voice of the people.
So from my comments, I'm concerned that that's going to delay this process. And it sounds like the applicant has been in this process for a number of years in partnership with our city council. That's my concern. So I would make a substitute motion that this item is recommended to city council for adoption for the placement of a statue at a location to be determined by the city council, or referred back to us for suggestion. That would be my substitute motion. No, it's well, just a sure.
I second that.
is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion is passed. Okay, item number 3, continued item, after action report, Wainimi Beach Festival. Receive information about the cost, resources, and event details associated with the execution of the 2023 Wainimi Beach Festival, and consider recommendations to be made to the City Council regarding the planning and execution of the 2024 Wainimi Beach Festival, including direction to prepare a request for proposal for event planning services. Will staff please present the report?
Good evening once again. As you'll recall, this item was presented to the commission on October 9th and was continued to allow additional time for public input. Since that time, an email link was set up to allow members of the public to send email communications to the Citizen Advisory Commission. We're still working to get that fully functional, but emails sent to that link are received by staff and are able to be forwarded to all the commissioners. Additionally, the city made 4 posts on its Facebook page about this meeting to engender interest and encourage participation in this meeting. Since it's a continued item, I don't want to rehash everything, but I did want to just quickly run through the presentation that we had last time, along with a quick summary of the comments and feedback that we received at the last meeting. So, as an overview, the purpose is for the council to have the CAC review information about the fiscal impact of the 2023 Hueneme Beach Festival, review the contents of the festival itself, and make recommendations and comments, any advisory recommendations about the performance of the event in the future. This year's event was held on the 26th and 27th of August and had an approximate attendance of 19 to 20,000 people. For the third year in a row, we did have REACH run the event on behalf of the city. As you'll recall, the initial proposal for this year's event did include the charging of an admission fee. That idea was not supported, and subsequently REACH presented a revised budget that had a very minimal projected surplus. The council entered into an agreement with REACH to move forward with event planning execution services. And again, in quick summary, that was to develop and implement the work plan and the budget, to execute contracts for festival services, to provide on-site supervision, to oversee sponsorship contractors and oversee vendor coordinators, and engage in all marketing efforts to support the event. And then I just did want to note that city staff resources are also contributed in support of the event. One footnote, last time in the staff report, and I believe in the presentation, I noted that REACH had indicated it was unlikely to continue being interested in providing support for the event planning services. There's been some counter proposals and discussion among REACH about its interest, so it's a little bit unclear whether or not that position would change, and REACH may or may not be interested in providing those services in the future. But regardless, staff is continuing to make the proposal that we pursue an RFP to identify a qualified vendor that can provide event planning and execution services. So a quick review of the finances. We talked about this last time, but we, based on REACH's financial reconciliation, we're looking at a deficit of approximately $46,000. Event planners were able to do a good job keeping expenses in line with what was budgeted, but the income fell short. This was primarily due to a less than anticipated activity-based revenues, monies collected from rides and souvenir sales, beverage sales and such, as well as sponsorship revenue came in less than expected. The slide also provides information about the city's contribution. Last time we talked about the cost of the event, the self-sustaining nature of it, if that was a desire of the commission. Again, the city provides an upfront contribution from sponsorship of $25,000. Staff support costs, primarily public works and police. We also have some recreation staff involved in event activities, a little over $27,000. And then again, per the contract, the city is responsible for the deficit, which is estimated to be about $46,000. So the considerations that were used last time to prompt discussion and engage the commission in thoughtful and meaningful comments and thoughts about the event in the future. We have that here. Should it be a regional event? Should it have a community focus? Should it be a single or multi-day event? The time of the year, we want to avoid competition with other events. And then again, what is the objective? Do we want a regional event, or do we just want something that's focused on our community, the size of the event? And then here I did my best. It's certainly not an all-inclusive list, but it's a relatively good capture of the comments that were shared, some by written comment, others by the comments that the folks on the dais, the commissioners made. And again, the beach, we call it the Hueneme Beach Festival, but are we truly using the beach? There was a comment about the underutilization nature of the event. The need to enhance the community group involvement, right? We talked about nonprofits, the schools, civic organizations, and their opportunity to improve their and enhance their involvement. Again, I mentioned before the financial concerns, the fact that we had a deficit, and whether or not this should be a self-sustaining, or just the degree to which it should be subsidized by city. Again, we talked about avoiding conflicts with other events. The Ventura County Fair and the Ventura County Pride events were mentioned as events to try to avoid conflicting with. And again, that regional event versus maximize attendance versus the community focus. It was noted in the report that we have a cannabis presence. We have the cannabis code. The question was asked, should we have that there? One of the comments was, yes, that's an integral part of who we are. We should retain that. Again, the discussion about potentially reducing it to a one-day event. There was a discussion about the sports involvement, perhaps a basketball, a 3-on-3, NBA. There was a surf competition, triathlon, volleyball, all those ideas were mentioned. The Navy, the Shumash, the community group, again, discussion about the importance of involving those. And again, why we're here, there was a desire to allow for additional community feedback. I mentioned some of the efforts that the city did, and I know that some of the members of the dais indicated that they would do some outreach. And we do have a number of members of the public here that submitted comment cards. So with that overview, I'll either leave it to questions and/or public feedback.
Does commission have any questions for staff? Only questions will be taken at this time. Comments and discussion will be heard later. No questions?
I think I have a question. Will they be looking into other resources to, instead of using REACH, using a different organization to maybe organize the event?
Yeah, so I won't necessarily say an alternative to REACH, but right now the plan is for the city to develop a request for proposal where we would advertise for a qualified vendor that could be potentially REACH if they're interested, and/or other vendors that would provide the event planning and execution services. So it's really an opportunity to find someone that's qualified and able to meet all of the key objectives. And we're looking to the CAC and ultimately the council to help us identify what are those key objectives. But the questions about the size of the event, the importance of the sponsorship, marketing aspects, the economics of it, the degree to which it needs to be self-sustaining. Is there an economic impact focus? Are we wanting a regional draw where people are going to come here and perhaps stay overnight, use our restaurants, and we're going to benefit from things like that. So yeah, REACH could theoretically, if they're interested, express interest and submit a proposal. But right now, our thought is to develop a request for proposal where we seek qualified vendors to perform those services.
Are there any other questions? Is there any public comments regarding this item?
Yes, our first public comment will be from Brianna Silva.
Hi, I apologize. I wasn't prepared to speak today, but real quick, admittedly I did not make it to this year's festival mainly because there were certain things I was asked by the director in 2022 to volunteer, which I did one day, and then I was of REACH. I was asked to go ahead and give input, and I did, and I also feel that it was ignored. I do know the person for a very long time, so I did ask, hey, what's going on? And it was ignored. But basically my thing was came in early, walked around, I'm also a small business owner. And so I walked around to some of the local vendors, some of the food trucks, all the different activities. And I just observed a lot of different things that could have been changed. One was definitely the input that I received from a lot of different people, even from coming in because I was at the entrance, was that it should have been a one-day event. Also the impact to the pavilion across the way, I did speak to them as well, and they were also very upset because they were not compensated for being the location of the pickup location for the green products. At least 2 years, 2022, last year again, like I said, I chose to skip it because I was still annoyed. As a member of the community, I do feel that the beach festival needs to happen. I've lived in many different parts in California, and I've always been a part of and participated in a lot of different festivals, and I appreciate what it brings to the community. We want to have tourism here within this beautiful beach that we have. The Banana Fest, I appreciate it as a vendor being there, seeing the community involvement that they had. They had the schools there. They had, the different mariachis, everything, the music, everything was there and the community was very much involved. I felt like when I went to the beach festival, it was just an extension of the county fair. The Strawberry Festival too, exactly. I haven't gone to the Strawberry Festival in a very long time because it has grown to this giant monster that I feel detracts from the beauty that is here in Ventura County. So for me, I just wanted to make, just, I do think there should be a fee probably for the first year, just to go ahead and to have a cushion for for the following years. Again, it's just something you can go ahead and say and put it out there. It's a donation to the community so you can continue on because we don't want to lose this. We want to continue to draw more people so we can advertise throughout Southern California so that you can have more people come. I mean, I've met people from San Bernardino who come out here because it's the weather. That's what we want to do. We want to have them come here and see the beauty. So that's it.
Oh, sorry, Beverly Kelly.
I'm here wearing two hats today. One is being on the museum board, and the other is being Friends of the Library. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
So, this is the first year the Friends of the Library did not attend did not have a booth at the festival because, and I'm going to use a word that's not nice, but we were being gouged. We're a nonprofit. And we were asked to pay, hundreds and hundreds of dollars, either for admission or whatever the fee is, the rental fee kind of thing, or also it was for insurance. And in the past, we've never had to do any of that stuff. So, little history lesson. I know you like history, and I like history too. This festival started as a result of Tony Young's idea. And Tony had some money. The city council had some money. The money came from, if you can remember, the bus stops, and they had advertising on the bus stops. So they had, I don't know, 25 grand. Let's do something with this. We had lost the Harbor Days. That had been going on for 50 years. That was a total 100% volunteer operation. But that was a time when we had 12 nonprofits able to do this. We had people that were able to be the police and everything was covered in that way. Then we had the festival up until the point of when it was costing $50,000 a year. And then people decided on the city council, we couldn't afford it. And at that time we had a structural deficit and we had a lot of problems. So when it came back in the form where Reach was in charge of it. Now, I'm not sure on the numbers here, but I think the first year was with 20 grand in the hole, then 50 grand, and now 90 grand. Is that correct? Do I have the correct numbers here? Oh, okay. Okay. With or without staff. Okay. That's a lot of money. And I looked at where the money was going, and it was going to professionals. It was going to, this person was in charge of, advertising, this person was in charge of sponsorships, this person was in charge of something else. And they all got all their money off the top. And you're never going to make it that way. Now, I think that you can do it with a lot of volunteers. I think if you give the nonprofits an opportunity, they will provide you with fishing on the pier or sandcastles or whatever it is that you want to do. I'd love to see this happen. Give me a few seconds. I'd like to see this happen again, but I want it to be smaller, one day, all volunteers. And we need to have some kind of committee. Now, where's this committee going to come from? I'm looking around here. There's nobody here. You need, if there isn't the desire in this city, you're going to have to let it go. But I think that with a 25 grand from the city and volunteers, I think you can do something. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Joan Tharp.
Hello. I agree with a lot that the previous speaker said. I don't profess to know anything about putting on a festival of any size or sort. I also don't know what concerns the city has about liability or safety. However, I think that the timing of the festival, I'm just going to sort of riff here, timing of the festival should be mid-June or mid-July when it doesn't conflict with anything else that's going on. I think the focus needs to be on the community, and so that means volunteers. I think that the city is like one of those friends you have that wants to do everything themselves and not outsource. I'm sure we've had bosses and friends like that. There are a lot of nonprofits in this community and outside of the community in the county that would probably love to be involved. I agree with the comment about the admission fee for nonprofits. I think it's kind of ridiculous. And what I would suggest instead is that you have those nonprofits put something on, get involved. They can do their tabling and their promotion and their merch sales, but have them do an educational piece. Some of those nonprofits would include perhaps someone from the Chumash community. Ventura Audubon might be interested, Coastal Keepers from Oxnard, the Morito Foundation, Surfrider Ventura County, Real Guppies, and there's also a group called Pure Stoke that does surfing opportunities for people, youth that is that are not often able to go surfing. So whether they're on the autism scale or emotionally disabled, they might be interested in putting on a little surf thing for the kids. One of the things I have a problem with is that we call it a beach festival. It has nothing to do with the beach. It's fenced off from the beach. That might be a safety concern. I don't know. But I would also suggest that we have activities and contests, whether they're circuit style or somebody does a volleyball serve contest and then does a relay and then does a frisbee into a hula hoop, something that's fun, engages the community, has the participation of the community. The parade for Harbor Days, I've been here long enough to remember that. That was a blast. Everybody loved that. So I really think the focus, whether it's 1 or 2 days, and it probably would be one day, needs to get off the carnival ride, off the bands, maybe have more local bands, high school bands, whatever it is. It really, I really feel that it needs to be focused on the community. So thank you for your time.
That concludes public comment.
Okay, the recommendation is to receive information about the cost, resources, and event details associated with the execution of the 2023 Wainimi Beach Festival and consider recommendations to be made to the City Council regarding the planning and execution of the 2024 Wainimi Beach Festival, including direction to prepare a request for proposal for event planning services. May I have a motion and a second?
I mean, I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Hey, does anybody have anything for discussion?
Yeah, I got one thing.
Okay.
Well, I don't even know if I need that. But I work at the high school, and there are numerous clubs and organizations over there. And if the city or the festival, however, whatever entity it was, community service is really big for college applications. And if you had the right type of application, the kids at my school would eat that up. And they would come out and volunteer in droves just to be part of that. And I mean, we have NJROTC, Mariachi, the science club, all the sports teams, they need all that kind of stuff on their college applications. And I think that's a I don't even know the right word for it, but we're not mining it the right way. And if we did that, you could get you could get a boatload of volunteers that would want to come out, and especially if it was held to one day, because kids want to do stuff like that, and they want to be part of something that's bigger than themselves, especially if it's going to benefit their city. So I just like to put that out there. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything to discuss?
Do. I did my due diligences again and went out and talked to a lot of different people and sent out a survey. And I think that I have a couple of really important points, I think, and I appreciate all the comments mentioned here today because that kind of echoes what I'm hearing also. And, again, I sent out over 100, close to 140 surveys, and I talked to mostly residents, but I also about another 10% to nonprofits and just community events people. And I think that, we have to remember who we are. We're a bedroom community. We happen to have a port. We happen to have a Navy base, which kind of houses about half of our population, actually. So, and most of our workforce. But I think that one of the things that makes us really unique and special is the fact that we are a quiet, beautiful bedroom community with a quality of life that we all love and enjoy here. And I think that going back in history to the harbor days and the kind of the quirky, fun localism, if you will, of how that was special. I remember sitting on my porch in the back of my home and watching the little parade go by with crazy, wacky floats. And it was fun. It was charming. There was something to be said about that. And I think that there's a general feeling right now with the folks that I've spoken with, and these are the top things. Number one, keep it local. Number two, make sure there's an ocean beach element to it that supports the beach. It provides the wellness for the beach, and we have a lot of wonderful nonprofits like the Coastal Keepers, Autobahns, and as Joan had mentioned, a variety of other folks that when I spoke with them, they actually said, I'd like to be involved. I'd like to do an event. I'd like to do something to raise awareness for my organization or raise money to help fund this event. And they're young, a lot younger than me. And so they have the energy to do it, which I don't. But I think it was in the passion to do it, which I think was wonderful. And I think that as we go down this path, and maybe it's a series of events throughout the summer, smaller events. It starts off with a parade, a summer celebration, and maybe there's a kite contest, a fishing contest one week. Surfing contests, volleyballs, sandcastles. There's probably a half a dozen different opportunities to do something special, sports events in a variety of different ways, like you mentioned. And I think that, if we keep it fun, I mean, there's a event in Florida that I found that is a goofy triathlon, and they let you swim in the ocean. You can wear your flippers, you can have your boogie boards, then you can get on a fat tire and go on. And this is family oriented. It's not real highly competitive. It's more for fun, and then they get on your fat tire and you ride your bike, and then you have to go through an obstacle course on the beach, and you have to crawl through floaties and different obstacles that kind of make it fun. And the reason they call it the Life's a Beach Crawl Triathlon, because they're raising money for the turtles. And again, I'm thinking of the birds and the health of our beautiful beach, and having some fun doing that, but also raising the awareness of taking the snowy plovers and making people aware of that, and taking this into a different direction completely, and having it unique to Port Hueneme rather than trying to compete with other beach festivals or the fair or the Strawberry Festival. We need to stay unique and to ourselves. And high schools, cook-offs, the Chumash. Maybe there's a canoe contest out in the ocean with I guess the Tamal canoes, the Chumash canoes, which would be kind of fun, right? And then I think that we should look to, I met with Reach. I went to one of their meetings because I wanted to find out a little bit about what was going on. I'm trying to do my due diligence here. And I think that one of the things that I came away with is that, they're trying to reconsider and they may need to rethink their organization a bit. And I respect that. And I think that we need to respect the fact that we also need to rethink our event or events, plural. Because maybe it's a series of fun events that are easier to bite off and chew rather than one big fair at a festival, a street fair, or a county fair that happens to be at the beach, so that it has a Port Hueneme fun feel to it, and that we can all feel like we can be a part of in some fashion. So my recommendation is that maybe we look to even consider taking a hiatus, put a steering committee together of some of the nonprofits and some of the community members out there, and see if we can't rethink, re-envision what this might be. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, I have something I want to say. Real Guppy Outdoors is a nonprofit. And we only participated in the beach festival on Saturday this year because the Fence Factory wasn't going to be there and let us use their booth. Otherwise, we would not have been able to be there because of the price they were going to charge. So nonprofits definitely
Charged.
need to be thought of whenever we're considering what we're going to do here. I grew up here. I remember what the harbor days and everything was like when I was a kid. The parades. I was in half of the parades. And we need to get back to that, to where the community is more involved, especially our youth. Our youth is our future, and we need to get them involved. That's all I have to say.
I actually wanted to follow back on that. Hueneme is also right next door to Oxnard. We have a beautiful college. We have a foundation at the college, which gives money every year to so many projects. I don't know why we aren't using more of the nonprofits for anything, and why would we ever charge the nonprofits? It doesn't make it, they're nonprofit. It makes no sense to me. Nonprofits can be your volunteers. They can set up their booths. They can set up everything for you. And we have sister cities right next to us with, I'd say there's probably, 500 nonprofits between Oxnard and Port Hueneme? That would
Quite a few.
probably take care of the whole festival. Let's keep it local again. Let's do the sandcastles. Let's do the surfing contests. Let's do the fishing with real guppies. That's my 2 cents on it. Let's have the college out there with these kids out here, in whatever their major is. We have a huge nursing program. We have high schools with every program.
Does anybody else have anything to discuss?
Yeah, first, I just want to thank the community members who submitted comments and spoke this evening on this important topic, and to staff for gathering that feedback. I thought that was a really good summary of what this commission discussed last month. Hearing the various thoughts of the event I'm reminded of, I grew up in a city that we had the flower festival, and it's very much what you all described, right? It was, we were the flower capital of the world, Lompoc, yay, in Santa Barbara County. Um, and I saw what became kind of what was mentioned earlier, right? The commercialization of it and how it became less and less in touch with the community. And some of the nonprofits fell away because of that and actually went into serious decline. The selling, tacos was the big fundraiser of the year at the event. So I think that's an important factor to consider in this, and I hope that's in the RFP. Somebody who has a vision for how they plan to engage the community, how they plan to engage nonprofits and involve them as vendors, or having booths rather. And it's always a hard tension, right? Because on one hand, we all want it to be Mayberry again, and on the other hand, it needs to be economically viable. And I think we can get closer to being in the middle there, and that could solve a lot of these issues and take advantage that we're still have elements of that community that we can draw on, right? It's not all gone yet. So how can we draw on them and pull on them? So, and I do want to acknowledge Tony Young and her contribution to reviving or creating the beach festival, imagining it, other council members. Unfortunately, of course, she passed, and to her family and friends, as they say, may her memory be a blessing. And I think it continues through this type of an event, right? And going forward. 2 points I'll add is I do discourage, I understand the desire to take time to plan and take a break for a year. Too often I've seen when you take a break, it breaks, right?
Mhm.
So I think having a one-day event that's viable, that can get us through and get the feedback from the vendors, reaching back to some of our nonprofits and saying it's a new day, new way, come on back. At the last meeting, I shared my own experience, why my organization wasn't even allowed to table, even though we table at every other community event, right? So I think that will be important. And the final factor, I think it was mentioned in the slide, but just having, by doing that, also having a couple resource booths, health, county resources, and they will come, they will table, they will probably, I don't know, probably sponsor, I don't know, but have somebody be able to come and get Medi-Cal and a tortilla, and a taco, I should say, and walk on the beach and listen to music and check out the Rotary Club and hear some music. That's a cool event that's gonna feel different than some of the other larger events in the community because it would still have that sense of being authentic, right? And the local businesses as well. Certainly, right now we need an opportunity to spotlight them. And unfortunately, if they're priced out and it's a 2-day event, that's asking a lot of a small business owner to be there, pay. I was just at an event where they were charged $600. I don't know what the fee was this year, but at this event I was at, $600 to table for a 2-day event. None of, I think more than half the small business owners I talked to did not even break even. And that's really rough, right? Especially if it's a key weekend in the summer where they could be making money otherwise. So I'll leave my comments there, but those will be my two points. Is I hope we don't take a break. I support the comments of my colleagues, and that we have some resource kind of fair components to it as well, so people can leave healthier and wiser for having come.
So
there any more?
I do have one more thing I forgot to mention. One of the things that I think is important, I think it is the budget and the financial considerations to our city. And I think that, one thing that in my opinion and based on my experience with a lot of different events as a participant and as a promoter in the past, is that cities really are there to be the host, provide support, and to be provide some resources, but they're not typically the main driver of the events. It's usually a business, it's usually a nonprofit, it's usually an entity, a cause. That's really the main focus and driver behind it. And I'd like to see the city be a part of this, but not in the way financially that puts the city at risk again. And because I think we have a fiduciary responsibility as a commission to be thoughtful of that. And I think that if we can look to redeveloping a steering committee that could bring in some players who are capable. I happen to have a neighbor that I know that throws really big events, and he says this event's too small for him. But I'm trying to guilt him into helping for free. And if we could get a couple of people who have some really great experience in sort of providing some advice and some wherewithal to kind of help provide a steering committee, if you will, to start to look at where they got to get the resources, who's going to help start funding, and I think even the nonprofits can play a role in this, because if they're going to be able to raise money for their own organizations, they too will have the wherewithal to put some resources to it too. And, I love the idea of the schools being involved because, again, youth has energy. And we need that energy to help us to drive these things and make it good. And it's good for them too. I think that's great. So that's all. I just wanted to just be thoughtful of the budget and the resources there. That's all.
Anyone else?
Just to piggyback on that point, I haven't reviewed the process that we use here at the county for RFPs, but perhaps there's an opportunity for a resident to be part of that screening process. But the city manager has that process; they know how to do RFPs. But that could be interesting to have a resident or a couple of residents involved in looking at those RFPs. Recognizing, of course, we are on a very tight timeline, but that's just something to consider. So
Maybe an advisory committee of some sort to review those.
yeah, or just I know that the city attorney would have to look in like the Brown Act rules and all of that involved in that, but I think having a voice there if possible, and that staff committee that's going to be reviewing the RFP process could be interesting. If not this cycle, perhaps future cycles when we have a little bit more time.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, a motion was made by Auclair and seconded by Sanchez. All those in favor? Yes, it's receive information about the cost, resources, and event details associated with the execution of the 2023 Hueneme Beach Festival, and consider recommendations to be made to the City Council regarding the planning and execution of the 2024 Hueneme Beach Festival, including direction to prepare a request for proposal for event planning services.
Before the commission acts on that, if I could just ask, there were a number of good thoughts and suggestions made. If I could just ask that maybe the motion could be customized a little bit to incorporate some of the tangible ideas so that direction's clear, and when we return to the council, we can say exactly what the CAC had in mind with the recommendation.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
I'll try to take a stab at amending that just a little bit. In that recommending back to the city council to look at the options, or look at the options for a festival or a series of festivals, or something that is takes into consideration the input of the community to provide a more local focus. And what's that? And a nonprofit focus to make community focus, you know, type of thing. I'm getting a little wordy here, sorry. Let me think about it.
It might be helpful if we just think about the bullet points that we're recommending,
Yeah.
and then we read off those bullet points.
Okay,
So we're talking about a local focus,
yep,
re-engaging nonprofits,
Yep.
right?
beach focus.
Beach focus,
Beach activities.
activities,
Um,
Youth-oriented.
youth.
youth, okay. I had shared resources, like a resource section of it.
Yeah, Joan.
Oh, and one day.
One day
Yeah.
or a couple of one days, small ones, yeah.
Yeah, I think the one day had been mentioned on the previous list that we had
Yeah,
that would be included in this. So these would be in addition to what
right.
was presented. Is there anything else? So we have local focus, re-engagement with our nonprofits as partners, a beach focus of in using the beach in some ways, including activities, youth as a focus, including some community resources, and that the event be a one-day event. That pretty much. What did say a little bit more about sponsorships?
Say, researching, gaining more sponsorship.
Oh, okay.
That's a given, I think,
Yeah.
with any event, but, well, it has to be, yeah, I mean. Yeah, I mean, you know, okay, so one of the things I kept thinking about was a kite festival. Washington, the state of Washington throws together a fabulous kite festival that's on the beach. It's 7 days long. It's sponsored by airlines. And I'm thinking, Alaska Airlines, why not? Right? We could do something along those lines. We have a new grocery store, the grocery outlet. They're going to want to be involved in our community, right? They do, yes. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you.
and
Yeah,
that's true. I mean, but again, if you're having a couple of different things, each one could be sponsored by a different entity, right? So Grocery Outlet could sponsor
so,
the food event. Yes, 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 yes. So
so
it's just
so
big picture thinking, right?
so your motion would be to, in addition to what's listed here, so we haven't reworded, in addition to what's been presented to us, recommend to staff to bring forward to council a recommendation for a local focus for the event, to re-engage our nonprofit partners, engaging the actual beach in some way, including possibly some activities, a youth focus, bringing in community resources, and that it's a one-day event, and that we focus as well as growing our sponsorships. So is that the motion?
Yeah, and I just yeah, that's fine. I think that the beach focus is really a critical piece of that.
So
because
with an
it's-
emphasis on the beach focus.
Yeah, because it's too much of a street fair that just happened to be at the beach, which was.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay,
So before you vote, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Yes.
Good articulation of the ideas. Commissioner Claire, you mentioned in addition to, I just wanted to be clear. So is it also incorporating the items on the slide that was a summary of the comments from the last meeting?
Yes, yes. And then if any of these conflict with those, these would take precedent.
Thank you.
Because I think in the slide,
Yes.
it said like 1 or 2 day, I don't know, wherever there's conflict between what we just suggested and what was in the slide,
Thank
this
you.
would,
That's why I
yeah.
asked, because some of them were just concepts without specific direction. So I'll take
right.
the ones that were specific with direction, add them to this, and these shall prevail if there's a
kind of
conflict.
morph
Thank
Yeah.
you.
them Together,
There you
yeah.
Okay, is there any more discussion?
And I just wanted to clarify, the motion was made by Commissioner Burke,
Yes,
seconded by okay.
Sanchez. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the motion is passed. Does staff have any comments to make?
No comments other than thank you for your hard work. Appreciate it.
Do the commissioners have any comments to make?
Just wish everybody a happy Native American Heritage Month, and that we honor the Chumash people here, and also Thanksgiving. I know it's this month as well.
And a Merry Christmas
Yeah,
and all
and
those
Hanukkah and
holidays that
additional
fall in
holidays.
between.
There you go. We got lots going on.
Yes, we do. Our next regular meeting will, yes. Oh, yeah. The email.
So I checked on that with staff today, hoping for an update. So we are working with our email contractor. We migrated to Office 365 this year. So I don't have a solution yet, but I'm glad you brought that up. I did want to make one point of clarification. We're going to amend our agendas to make clear when people have public comments on matters on agenda items, those will be requested that people send that directly to the city clerk so that can be incorporated like we did tonight as part of the meeting agenda. If there are other thoughts that people just want to share with the commissioners, it's our goal to have that fully functional so people can communicate directly to it. So for right now, as I indicated in an email, the workaround is that staff is able to receive, and we will forward that to you. We continue to work with folks that know a lot more about email configuration than I to hopefully in the near term have a successful resolution so you guys can receive those directly.
Okay, great. It says 4.
Yeah, so we recently approved the CAC meeting schedule. It calls for quarterly meetings on the second Monday of each month, starting in January. The regular time is 4 o'clock. This was a special meeting at 6 o'clock. If there's a desire by the commission to reconsider that, we can agendize that and discuss it. But at this time, it's scheduled for 4 o'clock for future meetings.
Okay, next regular quarterly meeting of the Citizen Advisory Commission is scheduled for Monday, January the 8th, 2024 at 4 p.m. The meeting is now adjourned. The time is 7:37.